most people, when they engage in some level of volunteer or community efforts, they have the best of intentions.
Right.
Sometimes our intentions not done appropriately can do a lot of harm than help. So really coming in as a learner and listener and understand you have to be in it for the long haul.
Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. I'm Allie.
And I'm Jason.
I'm curious, what's one of your favorite interactions with one of your neighbors?
Is it okay if it's my favorite, like, for the wrong reasons?
Of course, that's your answer. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so when my wife and I were first married, we had some kind of grand ideas of wanting to live in a neighborhood where our presence would really matter. And so we moved into this house that was honestly also like all that we could afford. And so the neighborhood was kind of rough, but we knew that. We were good with that. And man, some stuff went down right away. Like our hose got stolen. Oh. We had drug dealers on the street. I won't get into all of it, but it was nuts. It was crazy. And so at one point, our dogs get out our front gate. And the next thing we know, my wife is standing out front and our neighbor is chasing the dogs, holding a handgun pointed at them into our yard.
Stop.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And this is your favorite neighbor story?
Well, I told you this is my favorite for the wrong reasons.
And what's that reason?
Just the response that I get when I tell it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think another reason I like that story is because we had these, grand ideas that we were going to like show up and fix everything right away. And the truth is we had a lot to learn.
Yeah. Well, I was going to share a sweeter neighbor story.
That's good. We probably need it.
Okay. Well, our current neighbors that live across the street from us are like fill-in grandparents for us. Like when
nice.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
When we first moved in, they brought over banana bread, and they're always so sweet. And their names are Dana and Farron. And when they garden, my kids always want to help. But helping for my 5-year-old is basically uprooting the beautiful plants that she spent hours gardening. But she's always so sweet and just lets him help. And he gets really excited to go over there. And so those are just some of my favorite neighbors.
Yeah, that's a little different than my story.
A little bit.
And I think that's maybe a theme that everyone would experience is that we're all going to have different neighbor stories.
Yeah.
These are the stories of getting to know people that we live around, that we experience, that are around us in our community every day. So I think we can expect those differences to exist.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of differences, everything that we've talked about this season is in Oklahoma City because that's where we live. But we really think that if we can figure out how do we do this in our city, there's going to be so many principles that apply no matter where you live. And so that's part of what we're exploring this season too, is that every city's different, every neighbor's different, but ultimately Jesus calls us to love all of the people that we interact with.
Yeah, and I think, if it's always different, then why are we even talking about it? And that's because it's important that we learn how to engage in our community in a way where we're helping and we're not hurting.
That's really good.
Yeah. So that's why for this episode, we're going to go and talk with Jonathan Veal. He's with Restore OKC. They specialize in helping without hurting. And so we're going to bring our questions. And then after that, we get to listen in on a conversation with Randy, one of the life group members. And he gets to interview 2 of our very own life groups and life missions pastors.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming back to the podcast. Thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me back.
Absolutely. And we're so blessed to be here at Restore OKC with you in your beautiful room up here. Excited to talk about this journey. I know that you are the managing director currently. Can you talk to us specifically about the work that Restore OKC is doing right here in Northeast Oklahoma City?
Certainly. For those who don't know, Restore OKC is an asset-based community development organization. So what that means is we believe that there are existing leaders who know the history of this community. And our goal as an organization is just to come alongside them and just to be professional listeners and learners. Instead of coming in thinking we have the solution, we know that there are dreams, hopes, and desires that they have to see the community and neighborhood flourish. And we want that as well, but we want to do it at their pace. So just sitting in settings like this
Yes.
over a cup of coffee or firing up the grill and just listening to the community where they see the community is thriving well or challenges that the community may be facing, and how can we collectively push back and move the needle in those areas that need to be improved.
You know, for those of us who want to go into communities or into our neighborhoods, it's really important to get to know those neighbors and that community's needs. So how did Restore OKC go about getting to know this community so well?
Yeah, like I said, just grabbing a cup of coffee, or if you see a neighbor sitting on the porch, just having small talk and learning, just listening, because many people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so really expressing to the community, like how much we really care genuinely. And we're not just here for the short term, we're here for the long term. By doing that, trust is built, and they can share authentically how they feel about the community and where they see opportunities for advancement.
Yes, I love that. And as people, you know, might be watching today and they're thinking, I'm ready to get out into my community, love my neighbor, learn more about my surroundings, what is any more advice that you might offer to someone who's ready to get started?
My first tidbit of advice would be not to come in with a hero's mentality. If you're going to engage in a community or neighborhood, come with an inquisitive mindset. Most people, when they engage in some level of volunteer or community efforts, they have the best of intentions.
Right.
Sometimes our intentions not done appropriately can do a lot of harm than help. So really coming in as a learner and listener, and understand you have to be in it for the long haul. And when I say that, you may come to a community and help out, but also our neighbors are more than just like our locale for our home,
Right.
to the left, to the right, to the north, to the south. But literally anyone you come into contact with is your neighbor. And so are you coming with the mindset of how can I love my neighbor well? The only way you can do that is sitting and listening and learning how your neighbor is wired. Love is not something that's just general. It has to be specific and tailored to the person that the object of your love is directed towards.
Wow. Is there anything else that you would love to share with us today, maybe that you haven't gotten to share yet about Restore OKC?
Yeah, I would say once you get engaged, bring someone along with you. We can't do it all by ourselves. I'm a limited asset, but if you and I lock arms together, you can shore up some gaps that I have, and hopefully vice versa. But together, we can come alongside individuals in this community. Not only would Northeast Oklahoma City change and thrive, but Oklahoma City will. And then as a result, Oklahoma, and as a further result, the United States, and as a further result, the whole world. Because we're all world changers, but we can't change the world by ourselves.
Right.
We have to do it in partnership with others.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We are talking about how to love our neighbors, right? Lifechurch has a lot of opportunities and a lot of mission partners that do amazing work in our community. And I'd love to hear from you guys in your experience being life group, life missions pastors. What is Lifechurch doing in our communities now that can help prepare people to plan and be intentional to get involved with their neighbors?
You know, I think Lifechurch is so strategic. God's had his hand over it. So even to look at where life churches are geographically. In 2007, God saw fit to put one on Northwest Expressway. So the geography of that area, we have pockets of poverty in Northwest Oklahoma City. Through our local mission initiative, we are able to impact specific needs. We get to literally partner with organizations where people are waking up every day thinking about how to solve that specific problem. So when we partner with them, which is primarily through people and financial resources, community, those in need get a big win.
Yeah, that's part of what I love about our approach to missions is we realized really quickly that we don't have to be the answer to every single thing and be in every single space. There are organizations, like Robert said, they wake up every day passionate about that thing, and we just get to come alongside them and support them on what they're doing. And that's a really great way to be intentional, is to ask your pastor, if it's a life group life missions pastor, like who are our local mission partners and just ask God to identify one that you could step into this space.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that you can do with each partner, from actually serving, things you can do from home. You can make it intentional.
I love that you said that, because I think oftentimes it's, well, what's going to be the time commitment, or what's going to be the ask? And so can you guys walk me through, what does that journey look like to get involved in, get plugged into a mission partnership?
Yeah, I think a big first step of it is just identifying that God has given you gifts and talents exactly where you are. And I think something that holds people back, I know it held me back for a long time, was assuming that when I get to this point, or when I've got this life lesson, I've learned this, or I'm in this space, then I'll be equipped and prepared to do it. But just know that you're equipped and prepared with who you are today, and then step into that conversation. Take the step. Your pastor will go through different organizations, their missions, their opportunities, and find the one that speaks to you. Find the one that God breaks your heart for.
Can you guys give me an example of who on your campus is maybe doing what you guys just talked about really well?
Oh, yeah. So we have a life group leader. We have so many people, but I always think of Luke. So he leads a men's life group. And if there is a need in our community, in our church, they're some of the first to step into it. We had an attender who couldn't make it to church because he'd been in a motorcycle accident, and he physically couldn't make it down the stairs. And this life group showed up for him. They walked up 2 or 3 flights of stairs and carried him down the stairs into the truck, and then helped carry him into church. And it was the clearest picture of loving your neighbor.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love just that picture. And it kind of reminds me of the men that brought down that paralyzed man in front of Jesus. Like, that is a prime example of that. So with that, how did that get started, or how did that come about where they built this connection and had that opportunity to be neighbors together?
They've just said yes. From the start of this life group, if there is a need, they reached out and made it very clear. If you have a need, let us know. Sometimes we can step into it. We'll figure out a way. And that's been their posture the whole time.
I think there's also like a core belief that we have, and that is, when you're involved in this kind of work, it accelerates your discipleship. So yes, the need's getting met, but for the Christ follower, they are rapidly more growing in their faith. Yeah. Because you get into some of these situations and circumstances and you don't know what to do. Right. You know, like you've actually kind of protected yourself sometimes from working with these populations. So the Holy Spirit has to show up, and then you get really excited about your faith.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. So for you guys and people interested in getting involved in loving their neighbor, whether it is their next door neighbor, their community, a mission partner, what steps would you direct an individual that says, I'm ready to step into this?
You know, I think it's simpler than we make it, in that literally, what do you see going on with your neighbors? I think about my mom's 93, and Mr. Hahn rolls her trash cans out to the street every week.
Love that.
Such a measure of service.
Yeah, and asking God to have eyes to see that. Yeah. And when you step into it, the more and more you see that neighbor who needs their trash can taken out, you see that person that needs their groceries delivered. Yeah. You then become the kind of person who will see those needs. And we make it pretty easy at Lifechurch, so you could also go to your life group's life missions team, and they can tell you all about different partners and different opportunities, and even point you to the search tool on our app, where you can see everybody that your campus partners with, or if you're in an area with several churches, everybody that they partner with.
I love that. And I love how you talked about the eyes to see, right? How, as maybe someone I'm stepping in and wanting to know more about how to see these things, what advice would you give to those individuals?
Yeah, I would reiterate just having a posture of knowing that you have gifts and talents. You have value that you can bring. You may not have all the answers. You may not be at a certain stage of life you think you should be in, but just don't let that hold you back. Just know that exactly who you are today, God wants and can use you and work through you, and having the confidence to just finish the process. Sometimes it's not easy. There will be setbacks. There will be things that don't go according to plan, but just let that be part of the process of growing and serving. Just take the step and let God work through it. I think a big part is knowing your worth, but also knowing that when you step into those spaces, when you're making a difference in lives of people around you, your neighbor, there will be things that come up. There'll be opposition to that. And just working through it anyway.
What are some practical oppositions that we just need to be mindful of when we do say yes to what God wants us to do for our neighbor?
Mindset is just so important because you can get into this and our expectations can come out pretty quickly. It's a level playing field at the cross. And just because I have more assets or resources, that doesn't make me better or whatever.
Yeah. I love how you talked about mindset shift. And we've talked about this before, but it's important when we are stepping into serving that it's not just helping them. It's not always about them, because what we do for them is also helping us as well. And it's growing our relationship with Christ. It's deepening our relationships with others as well and taking them along the journey. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us today. I'm really excited to take what I've learned from both of your experiences at Lifechurch and the wisdom that you have. And I'm excited to see what God is going to do through Lifechurch and through our communities.
Well, Randy, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so I heard that you got to talk with Robert and Talia. So tell me all the things that you learned.
Yes, they had such great wisdom. I think the biggest thing that I took away from our conversation was being available, right? I think that's something that oftentimes when we think about our own lives, there's so many things that are going on. It's easy to get distracted and not being able to have that intentionality to love your neighbor. But it was a great conversation with them to really just talk about what does availability look like and what does that intentionality behind that look like as well.
Robert is actually a pastor at the location where I attend. And one of the things I love about what you said about being available is he does it. And one of the reasons, actually, Randy, that we were hoping you would talk to them is because we've heard some stories about some ways that you've actually already kind of jumped the gun and you've been getting involved in your neighborhood. Would you just talk about some of that?
Yeah, probably not the most exciting thing ever, but one of the ways that I kind of stepped in to get plugged into our neighborhood is signing up for our neighborhood HOA.
Super exciting.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. With that, I knew that stepping into HOA, it would jumpstart my relationships with my neighbors. I think that's something that I'm super passionate about. I want to get to know my neighbors, and I do day-to-day life in my neighborhood, and so do they, and I want to make sure that they are involved together just as much as I want to be involved in their lives as well.
So that's something that you've already started. And I'm just curious, after kind of thinking about this and getting to talk with Talia and Robert, what are some of the things you're thinking you might try when you go back into your neighborhood?
What I'm able to take back and be able to apply in my neighborhood is really find people who have the same passion as I do and just say yes to an opportunity, whether that's to learn more about a specific area that we want to serve as a community or whatever that may look like. I think that's something that I really want to be able to initiate and do.
Yep. And Allie, that's something we're going to be talking about for the rest of this season, is getting specific about specific areas and ways that groups can get involved. But before we do, there's a scripture I wanted to share. As you're talking about moving into your neighborhood and you're looking around and how can I get engaged? It reminded me of John 1. And that's the one that starts, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, was with God. But then it gets to John 1:14. And this is the Message version, and says, the Word became flesh and blood. It's talking about Jesus. And moved into the neighborhood. And we saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. And I think that's as Christ followers, we're supposed to do what he did, right? So we don't move into our neighborhood and just kind of close our blinds and whatever. We need to move in and reveal the glory of God as we get to know our neighbors. So I just love that you're doing that.
Yeah,
and so great.
I love that you mentioned that too, because I think even moving into that neighborhood, and oftentimes we're always okay, we're busy, we have our own lives, they have their own lives, let's not interact. And something that we talk about often in the HOA is oftentimes there's conflict too, right? As I'm diving in relationships with my neighbors, I think it's important to be okay with the conflict.
Yeah, that's really good because I tend to be a person who avoids conflict. I don't like to rock the boat.
Yeah.
But something I've been really trying to tell myself is that the people that you have the conflict with the most is the people you trust the most. And so conflict is a sign of trust. And so I think that's good encouragement for us of when you meet your neighbors, sometimes it might feel uncomfortable to start. You might encounter some spicy opinions you both
Yes.
have. I'm sure you have that on
Yes.
HOA, but you can push through that because we get to, move into the neighborhood, which is really cool.
So speaking of people that we trust and crossing barriers and pushing through conflict, we're actually going to ask our groups to do this together. And the question for you to talk about this week is, who are your neighbors and how can you get to know them? How can you get involved in your neighborhood? Because our neighborhood is one of the best places that we can start loving our neighbors and getting involved in our community.
And every neighborhood is going to look different, but that's why it's important to start where you are. So just figure out one small thing that you and your life group can do and encourage each other. Do it and then talk about it together and share what you learned.
And have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this week's conversation. Next video is actually one of my very favorites because we're going to be talking about how to get involved in your local school. Click here to check it out.